Hi, I'm Gerard Dache, founder of the Government Blockchain Association, and we're here on the Edges Show. We'll be talking about an event that we're doing at the U.S. Capitol called the Future of Money, Governance, and Law, where we're bringing government leaders, innovators from around the world to really shape the future of digital assets and this technology. We hope that you join us on the show, and we hope that you join us in D.C. to be part of an epic event in an iconic city. Thanks.
Hey, Web3 pioneers. Today we're diving in with Gerard Dache, founder and executive director of the Government Blockchain Association and a global leader connecting innovators with policymakers. We'll explore how the edge of company and GBA is shaping the conversation around the future of money, governance, and the law on Capitol Hill. We also talk about the importance of immersive and fun experiences like the 1920s themed Cryptopoly Gala that we'll be doing together the day prior. Gerard also shares his perspective on the evolution of money, the role of blockchain in healthcare, and the tension between privacy and policy, how GBA is influencing these conversations, and how you can get involved. All this and more on the Edge of Show, where we spotlight the boldest ideas shaping the future of Web3 and beyond. Cue the intro.
Welcome to the Edge of Show, your gateway to the Web3 revolution. We explore the cutting edge of blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, ordinals, DeFi, gaming, and entertainment, plus how AI is reshaping our digital future. Join us as we bring you visionaries and disruptors pushing boundaries in this digital renaissance. This show is for the dreamers, disruptors, and doers that are pumped about where innovation meets culture. This is where the future begins.
Hello and welcome to the Edge of Show. I'm your host today, Josh Krieger, and we feature a variety of top-notch guests and other hosts as well. It's another production of the Edge of Company, a quickly growing media ecosystem empowering the pioneers of Web3 tech and culture, and responsible for other groundbreaking endeavors like the Outer Edge Innovation Festival in LA and Riyadh, another exciting event we'll talk about on this show. Today's show features our partner from the Government Blockchain Association, Gerard Dache, founder and executive director. He's a global connector on policymaking, technology, and innovation, working to solve public sector challenges through blockchain and emerging technologies. Gerard's leadership is helping bridge innovation with governance in powerful new ways. Gerard, it's been great working with you. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Josh. And I need to bring you around to introduce me everywhere I go. That was awesome.
First time was a charm, right? So just a little bit of practice there. But, you know, it's a little bit rainy here in DC, I know, where we're both at today. But man, like what a great sort of event that we've been able to cook up together coming up, and just over just around 6 weeks from the time of this recording.
Yeah, and it's amazing how quickly it's coming together, because you and I have both had a really great ecosystem, and when we plugged everything together, honestly, I think most people would not believe it was possible to pull off the event that we have. But it's an incredible event that's coming together really well.
Yeah, every once in a while when I'm like, is this really happening? I just look at the website speaker page. I'm like, yeah, it's come together. So, but before we get into that, let's talk about your background a little bit and what drew you into the world of blockchain. How did all of that evolve to you creating the Government Blockchain Association? I've heard bits and pieces of this story, but I'm curious, sort of, if there was like a moment per se where you knew blockchain would be more than just another tech trend.
Yeah, you know, it was actually a couple moments, and blockchain was a piece in the puzzle. But there are other pieces that make blockchain really important, right? Blockchain is really a trust protocol. And the question is, why do we need it, right? So I had led a career for many years where I was going around, I was evaluating very complex, large IT systems for government, right? So I had a government contracting background and militaries and defense and intelligence in the United States military. And so and at one point I got invited to China, and they said, would you come to China and evaluate Chinese defense contractors for the Chinese government? I said, you do realize I'm a former United States intelligence professional. They said, no, we know that about you. We actually know quite a bit. And I said, that's comforting. But they said, we have it on good account that you can't be bribed. And when we sent our own Chinese officers into these situations, these $500 million contracts, they're right. To make a long story short, I got some clearances, and it was very complex, but I ended up going to China 20 times. And at first, everything was great. They would show me the stuff. I would sign the certificates. They would win the contracts. But I started uncovering a lot of fraud and corruption in China, and it wasn't just in China. It was globally. There were very, very large entities. And what I started realizing about in government is there's a lot of good people trying to do a lot of things, but there's a huge concentration of power and money, and that, they say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've experienced that in my days of public sector work. There's a lot of folks that are so mission oriented and passionate about what they're doing, and committed to great things for government, great things for the public. And then unfortunately there are folks that just can't pass up temptation.
Yeah. It's a huge money pot, right? And when we talk about all the fraud and corruption, they go to where the money is, and there's a lot of money in government. So that was sort of the backdrop. I was dealing with those issues, and then I went to my son bought a little bit of Bitcoin, a couple of dollars, and when he sold it, he paid for a car, a motorcycle, his college tuition, and living expenses. And I said, "Hark it, there's something here." So I started going to some meetups, and then I saw that blockchain was the secret sauce. I actually went to a Digital Chamber meetup. Carrie Ann Boring was speaking. She's sort of a rock star in the industry. And when it was over, I walked up to her and I said, "Look, I don't know much about blockchain or anything like that, but I know something about government. Can I volunteer to lead a government track within your organization?" So she said, "Send me your resume." And I did, never heard back from her. So I just decided to have a meetup. So in August of 2016, we held our first meetup. In this fall of 2017, it turned into an association. And today we have over 5,000 members in our database. They work in about 500 government offices around the world. I got 30,000 followers on LinkedIn. We've got about 12 to 15,000 on Meetup. So it's really turned into a global organization of people in government that are pro blockchain, pro digital assets, pro cryptocurrencies, that have programs and budgets. And our goal of the organization and of the event is to find people that have solutions and get them connected with people in government that have funding and requirements to use this technology to root out some of the corruption that we see in the world. So that's kind of how the whole thing came together.
Very cool.
So I was looking for a way to get involved with blockchain. And one of the things that I realized is a lot of people were focusing on money, right, on the cryptocurrency aspect. And all of the activity was happening basically in Silicon Valley and on Wall Street. But there wasn't anything in the government sector. And I thought, nobody's there, right? I don't have resources, connections, anything like that. And I can't compete with the Deloittes and the IBMs and all those folks. But if I plant my flag in government, government will eventually be one of the largest consumers of blockchain. And nobody's there yet. So if I plant my flag there, I'll have first mover advantage so that by the time the other big players come, we actually will be able to be competitive. And
they kind of had. I love that, and now we're at a point where the regulations are wide open and there's unlimited potential. So that's really great. Yeah, Gerard, really cool story. Thanks for sharing all those details, and definitely you're ahead of the times. It's great to see what's now possible in an open regulatory environment where government can not only look at this technology for how it benefits citizens, but what they can do with it to innovate. So nice work there.
Thanks.
Let's take a pause to shout out one of our favorite partners. For tech innovators facing legal challenges, Zuba Lawler is your go-to law firm. They focus on understanding your technology and business model before addressing legal requirements. Specializing in blockchain, AI, VR, AR, quantum computing, and more, Zuba Lawler offers expert guidance in capital raising, IP transactions, M&A, litigation, and compliance. Visit zuberlawler.com, that's ZUBERLAWLER.com, for cutting-edge legal solutions.
So let's talk about the core mission of this upcoming event that we're doing together and why there's this critical moment for shaping public understanding of blockchain and educating policymakers. What are your thoughts on this particular year and in this event we have coming up and why it's important?
Well, the first thing that I think is important is to understand that the spotlight on blockchain and digital assets and cryptocurrency isn't static. It wasn't here in the U.S. a couple of years ago. It was in other places like Estonia and Dubai and different places like that, Singapore, right? And so we talk about this event in terms of here at the U.S. Capitol because it's important in the United States now. But a couple of years ago, it was extremely important in El Salvador, right, when they made Bitcoin a national currency. So the answer to your question is, why is it important here now? It's really because the last administration was driving this technology outside of the U.S., right, with various sort of hostile policies. And the current Trump administration is very pro digital assets, but they're pro U.S. digital assets, right? So they want to make the United States the crypto capital of the world, and there's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm to build it here now, which is really what makes this event important right now.
Yeah, so for me, I think people are just generally curious about what's going on in DC at this point. There's been enough stories, enough coverage globally that many people have never been to Washington DC before, want to go, and it's a beautiful city, incredible museums, great restaurants, great live music, a lot of new development, but it's also sort of a place where a lot of conversations are happening about the potential of blockchain, and there's events every day, right? There's one today and one tomorrow. So I think it's really important for people to touch grass and come over here and see what's going on. And I also think it's important for the conversations here in DC to broaden and include international government leaders and international perspectives on these matters. So I want to emphasize to the listeners at home, this is not a U.S. policy event. This is a global blockchain government enterprise event where we can talk about what's possible here. And it just so happens that we're in Washington, D.C., which is, at this important moment in time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I like to say that this is an epic event in an iconic city. And there's really, I can't tell you, because I've been in these halls before, what it's like to be in the halls of power at a time when really global policy and global initiatives are being framed, and being able to be in the room where it happens. It's really an incredible opportunity.
Absolutely. And I love that we both like to create magical experiences that are immersive and leave people with memories and deep connections. I feel like when the vibrations are correct in the room, the networking amplifies that much more, and it takes sort of some unique je ne sais quoi to do that. And so in our case, what we've put together is this really special gala, which is going to be the day prior to the main event on October 29th. And there's this fun sort of theme to the gala, which I'll let you go into more, since it was your organization that came up with this concept before. And I was like, yeah, sign me up. This sounds great.
Well, the event was really born out of my wife's understanding. She's gone to a lot of networking events, and I recognize a lot of tech people struggle with networking. And so we have a lot of tech people in our community. So she focused on, how do we make this thing fun and engaging for both the high level people and the tech people. So she came up with this game called Cryptopoly. It's a Monopoly themed game that it really focuses on sort of the 1920s and 1930s. So that the women are wearing flapper dresses, the guys are wearing top hats. It's a great opportunity for people to just have a lot of fun. And when you arrive there, you receive digital assets that are Monopoly type cards for Bitcoin, Ethereum, different crypto assets. And through the evening, you get to buy, sell, and trade these digital assets. And whoever has the highest portfolio value at the end, you also get a stack of movie money, which looks absolutely real on film. And so we have a picture of, and again, we have very high level people that attend this thing, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, sitting at a table with stacks and stacks of cash, right, movie money, and these digital assets, trading back and forth. And so it's really an opportunity where people at all levels get to have a lot of fun, but yet at the same time, they're talking about things that they relate to professionally. So all kinds of connections are made, business opportunities, contracts, proposals. It is an incredible way of getting people to get together to have fun, but have incredible business results come out of it. It's a stroke of genius.
I love that. One of my favorite stories from when we started NFTLA back in 2022 was we did this unique 360 immersive theater performance by Steve Aoki, a really famous DJ. And someone said, it was at that performance that I met my first investor that ended up writing $1 million check for my company. So,
Awesome.
these, you often misunderstand sort of the or networking is often misunderstood as sort of this sort of transactional quick fire, what do you do sort of thing, but it's really bonding over experiences that builds relationships, which is, I think, the heart of business itself. So it's really important to have these types of fun experiences built into events. So that was one thing that we aligned on very early. And yeah, I can't wait for folks to check this event out. You can go to the GBA Global website. We'll share all the details on the show notes below the show. You can just click on it and get involved. And just another reminder that if you use the code EDGEVIP, you'll get 20% off these Gala tickets, which are selling very fast. So definitely now's a great time to be part of this once-in-a-lifetime event. Moving a little bit more broadly, Gerard, into what the GBA is all about. You're focused on AI, blockchain, even quantum computing. And it was great to sort of work on the agenda with you and have that be part of the conversation. Tell us a little bit more about how GBA is helping government leaders understand and prepare for this technology convergence that we talk about so much on the show.
Sure. So there's a couple things. One of the things that we saw as a big impediment to blockchain adoption globally is the fact that folks in government and enterprise, they can't trust blockchain. And they can't trust it because they've heard about Sam Bankman-Fried and Celsius and Terra Luna and all of this, even going back to Mt. Gox. And when they said to us, we can't seem to make traction in government, I said the problem is they don't have a box to check. In every other industry, there are certifications that, right? These acquisition officials, they don't know anything about blockchain and technology, right? They need a box to check, because if it goes wrong, they need some way to be able to say, look, it was independently checked. So we looked around and we started developing these standards, right? So that people that were building solutions, they could have their solutions independently verified, so acquisition people could essentially trust them. Well, we started working on these standards, and then the United Nations had built a blockchain solution for identity, and it was for a $90 billion trust fund or a pension fund. But before they implemented it, they had to have it independently evaluated. So they went to ISO, they went to ANAPA, they went to IEEE. Nobody had a framework for evaluating it until they came to the GBA. And when they saw the work that we have 50 working groups working on standards for blockchain, they said, this is exactly what we needed. So they then essentially became our partners in developing these global standards. So one of the things that the GBA does, in addition to getting people together, is we help solution providers be able to prove and demonstrate that their solutions can be trusted so that they can be acquired by governments.
So is that like publishing use cases, putting out templates or frameworks? How do you sort of convince skeptical folks that this stuff is for real and can really make an impact in these businesses and organizations?
So the first thing is, we took almost 3 years to study every blockchain solution we could to find out what is the criteria that makes a blockchain solution trustworthy. And we developed a model that has 11 elements, right? Distribution, identity, infrastructure, sustainability. And we came up with 5 levels of maturity. Is it mature enough to be for investment funding, for due diligence? Is it mature enough to be a proof of concept? Is it mature enough to be rolled into production? Is it mature enough to be rolled out at the enterprise level or the global public level? And the standards are technology agnostic, so they work for both permission and permissionless blockchains, and they're industry agnostic. But then what we realized is that different industries had different requirements. So for example, if you're building a blockchain solution in banking financial services, you got to do AML KYC, right? Anti-money laundering, know your customer. But if you're going to build a blockchain solution in voting and elections, you have to have permanent separability between the voter and the vote. In other words, anonymity is a legal requirement. If you're building a blockchain solution in healthcare, let's say for clinical trials, you have to have traceability between the patient and the data. You might need to know their blood type, their family history, their race, age, things like that. But you're not allowed to know who they are, their name, address, and phone number. So our 50 working groups then started working on independent standards for every different industry. And then what we did is we started training people around the world to perform these assessments. And then we started performing the assessments and publishing the results. So when a potential government or enterprise customer is looking at a solution, they can see an independent verification that a group of professionals using a defined standard and defined criteria developed by global leaders in the space have attested that the solution can be trustworthy.
Very cool. So have you been able to evaluate the newest blockchains that have like come out in the last few years? Aptos, Sui, Supra, Hyper Pulse, like have these all sort of been evaluated as well? And
so to perform an assessment typically takes about 2 weeks. It's done with a team of a minimum of 4 people, right? Four experts. So there's a domain expert. So whether you're doing voting or healthcare or whatever, there's a blockchain technology expert. There's a digital asset and a legal compliance expert. And so these 4 people over the period of about 2 weeks perform a very, very in-depth assessment. They're looking at documentation. They're reviewing all kinds of stuff, conducting interviews. And so it costs to do that. We've now completed about 11 assessments. We've done the Oracle blockchain, but we only do it for organizations that essentially pay to get it done. It's not like a hobby kind of thing. It's a professional assessment.
So I guess that model makes sense. I mean, I appreciate, as having a consulting background, worked with all these agencies, the labor intensive nature of it, and of course, you want to be thorough here, not just check boxes, but does it stress you out at all to know that there's good blockchains out there that are government friendly that haven't gone through this assessment process yet?
No, for 2 reasons. The first reason is it's a relatively new process, right? Secondly is, like, for example, with Bitcoin, I don't think we need to do an assessment of Bitcoin. People know what Bitcoin is, right? I think that this process is really needed in areas where you don't know. Let me give you the best example. We had a government agency come to us, and this government agency is very progressive in blockchain. They've built multiple blockchain solutions in public sectors. They've spoken all over the world. They're real leaders in blockchain. And they said, listen, we would like you to do an assessment for us so that we can prove what we've been saying all around. So we said, great. Okay, so here's the first question. How many nodes do you have? And they said, we don't know. And I said, what do you mean you don't know? And they said, well, we just write our data to an API. The vendor takes care of it. And we said, okay, well, who's your contact with the vendor? They said, we don't know. This is a government agency that's been writing critical data, right, to a blockchain for years. And I said, who's your contact there? They said, we don't know. The person who set up the contract did it before we got here. So we said, okay, great. Can we see the contract? We saw the contract. It was a 2-page service agreement, and it said, you write your data to our system. When you stop paying us, you have to take your data off of our system. I said, this doesn't even sound like a blockchain. So we eventually got in touch with the person, and we said, how many nodes do you have? And they said, we'll get back to you in 6 weeks. Well, you got a slow Block Explorer, right? So here's what we found out. The person who set up the contract did it before these people got there. But the contracts department didn't know how to write the contract for blockchain, so they used a standard service agreement template. When the price of Ethereum went up, the gas fees went up, the contractor looked at the contract and they said, there's nothing in this contract that says we have to write it to blockchain. So why don't we write all of this confidential government data to that unmanaged server under Ernie's desk. And for 2 years, while this government agency was traveling all around the world, bragging about how they were using blockchain, the reality was they had government data being written to an unmanaged server. And it's those kinds of scenarios and situations that the BMM has just literally shown the light on all of the scam and all the fraud. We've had people come up to us thinking that they had stuff on blockchain, and the reality was they just had it on a distributed database.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I'm not surprised by that story, even though that story is really scary, and I'm sure it scares a lot of folks listening in terms of data integrity, data privacy. It's a battle out there, and we're still in the middle of the war. With that said, there is some really exciting progress being made in various agencies and various sort of themes I want to sort of hit on before we close out this show. And one of those is what the Department of Commerce recently announced, which is they're moving to put GDP and budget data on blockchain. I thought this was really fascinating news. What does this tell you about where public data transparency is heading?
Well, that's a great piece of news right now, right? But I want to kind of put that in context. There have been several other blockchain projects over the last couple of years that had tremendous promise, but a lot of them didn't make it, right? So some of them did, right? There's an Army project where they're looking at.
I mean, I think most blockchain projects don't make it, to be fair.
Yeah. I will tell you, in government, there's a reason why. Right, I had the opportunity of being with the ICT minister, Cameroon. Right, this is Internet Communications and Technology. She reports directly to the president. He had just won his election for his 38th year in democratic elections, right? And she said to me, we're interested in blockchain in all of its use cases, except for elections. Our voting system works just the way we like it, right? And what I would say is, there have been a lot of projects where good people have been implementing blockchain, and because they want to demonstrate their integrity. We've got a lot of forces that are pushing against it. They don't want the integrity. There is at the U.S. federal level in Department of Treasury and Health and Human Services, there was a grand project that they were putting on blockchain, and the challenge was it was revealing too much. And for that reason, it didn't continue, right? Now, the good news is we have a current administration, Department of Commerce, that, in fact, it's not just Department of Commerce. Let me go back a little bit. When RFK was running for president, he basically made a campaign commitment. I think he did this maybe it was Bitcoin Nashville. And he said that if he won the election, he would put the U.S. federal budget on the blockchain. He didn't win the federal election, but he did get an HHS. So then we thought, let's go to them and talk about putting the HHS budget on a blockchain, right? And then we realized, well, that's the pretty big thing. So let's go to a county health department. So a number of GBA members are working at the county level, trying to implement blockchain. So what you're seeing is this bubbling up. From the top, you've got an administration that is pushing this in a big way, wants to be a global leader. But turning a battleship is a lot harder than turning a canoe. And so what we really need and what we're seeing is smaller level projects, figuring out the technology, getting the battle scars, improving the processes, developing the confidence, and we're going to see that meet in the middle. And that's the next 2 or 3 years is going to be the most pivotal time in the U.S. for blockchain, because we're going to see both of those ends come together.
Yeah, I think that we are at a really interesting time where there's been some signals of potential and promise here that people are taking notice of. One of my favorite stories I covered recently was the California DMV putting titles on the blockchain, which was a great use case of blockchain that I've been thinking about and various guests have talked about on the show for years. So we're seeing those sort of the trail of pebbles come together here, and lots of good stuff coming. And I think there's this broader sort of question or conversation around how money is evolving into digital assets. Certainly, some some countries have converted to a digital currency in a more profound way than others, and we're now mixing in stable coins with digital currency. How do you see this transformation into digital assets impacting sovereign wealth and national economies?
That's a great question. So there's a power struggle going on right now, right? The United States wants to remain the global reserve, because the advantage of being the global reserve is people are going to continue to buy your debt. So you can print as much money as you want to, essentially without repercussions. The problem is that people in the other parts of the world don't like that, right? They don't like being beholden to not just the U.S., but any central authority. And what we're seeing happening right now with digital assets is we're fractionalizing value, and we're releasing value by there are people that are tokenizing properties, right? So that instead of owning a whole house, you can own a fraction of a house, or a fraction of a car, or a fraction of a piece of art. And what we're creating is these all new monetary instruments, so we can exchange value. And I'll tell you what I see happening. I don't see that there will be one cryptocurrency or one digital asset to rule them all. I think that we might one day see everything denominated in Bitcoin, right? Once the price stabilizes a bit, because Bitcoin is sort of a common denominator, but it doesn't have the technical capability to be the one transaction mechanism for everything. So I can see counties having their own digital coin. I can see businesses having their coin. I can see fractionalized assets. You could, one of a good friend of mine is fractionalizing a sports stadium, right? Or an entertainment sports stadium, because the members of that community want to own that property. So rather than us giving taxpayer dollars to a government, and that government then using public money to buy this, right? The community itself can self-fund it in a decentralized governance fashion, as opposed to a centralized government, right? So I see a lot of different value digital assets. And what I think is going to happen is when you go pay for something at a local grocery store, you'll have all these digital assets on your phone. Your phone will probably pick which digital asset based on gas fees, based on transaction prices, performance, right? If you're going to buy a Starbucks, a coffee at Starbucks, it's a very different type of transaction than if you're going to buy a new car, right? You don't need that new car transaction to process within 10 seconds or 1 second. So I think technologically we're going to see a fractionalization of money, and that's going to create a direct threat to sovereign economies, right? And right now, for example, if you look at the Stablecoin Act, right, they want to make sure that stablecoins are only backed by U.S. dollars, right? Because that protects sovereign wealth. We're going to see essentially a tug of war on centralization versus decentralization, and I don't know where it's going to go. I mean, I hope it goes towards decentralization, but the other aspect that, and I'll stop here because I want to hear your input on it. The other aspect where this becomes really important is identity, right? Because people have a right to privacy, but at the same time, the government needs to essentially know certain things to protect societies against bad actors. And the decentralization of money and the decentralization of identity, those two things are coupled, and they're in conflict with the government's ability to maintain order. So, who knows where it goes, but that's the tug of war that we're facing.
I see. Well, I really appreciate your perspective on this sort of these macro issues and where things are at this current moment. So I'm actually curious if you think the United States is truly on a path to becoming the crypto capital of the world, or is centralization still holding it back? Where does it stack up to some of these other countries that are sort of pushing pro-blockchain policies?
Well, the question has a bit of an oxymoron component to it, right? Because if you talk about cryptocurrency, and we use Bitcoin as sort of the standard, right? It is by nature decentralized, and by nature, it can't be controlled by a single entity or a single country. So, I don't think that it's possible for any one country to become the crypto capital of the world. I think that they are they could become a sort of a global reserve, right? But it by its very nature would have to be centralized, which is by its very nature opposed to decentralization. What I would like to see is a world where everybody was playing by the same rules. It was a level playing field, and no one country had control over another, right? I mean, the way the world works right now. And look, I served in the military. I love my country. There's a lot of good things about our country. It's not perfect, but it's, from my perspective, I'm glad I live here. It's a great country. But a lot of people in the world doesn't want to have one country essentially in control of another, right? So the banking system is controlled by the United States. And while I think the U.S. is good, and by and large that's good, I think globally we need to get to a place where no one country controls the global economic system. I think it should be decentralized.
Yeah, this is an important conversation we'll continue to have in DC on Capitol Hill, October 30th. So definitely encourage folks to be part of the conversation. And another key topic is, how much regulation is enough in your opinion? And when do we start to sort of crush innovation in the blockchain space? Or are we sort of going into the world of overregulation right now in the United States? Or do you think the policies that are coming out are shaping innovation?
The whole issue here is identity and privacy, right? The questions like wallets, right? From a regulation standpoint, the way it works right now in the Web 2 world is the government controls the banks control the money, right? And so the banks require us to identify who we are. They know every transaction that we have, and the government can require the banks to disclose that information and can seize funds. If we go to a central bank digital currency, we've got the same thing. We have essentially centralized governments controlling people. We need some of that, right? At the same time, the thing that is great about the United States is that we have checks and balances, and the government can't just arbitrarily do things because it wants to. But that's not true in all countries, and that may not always be true here in the U.S. So it's a hard question to answer, but we've got to find that balance between giving people their privacy and not allowing governments to unduly suppress the rights of people, and yet at the same time protect people against bad actors. It's not an easy question to answer, but that's when we talk about regulation. Honestly, it all comes down to identity and what control should the government extend over people.
Yeah, I think what's important right now is I do feel like there's this greater sense of openness in terms of folks in the government wanting to understand, what is possible to support innovation relative to even a few years ago. And I think events like the one we're doing, where we can educate government policymakers on the positive use cases for blockchain. I think every legislator wants their local country to thrive, to be able to bring the most additional economic development, to create the most ambitious and productive tools for society, right? Yeah. So it's just, how do we do that in a way that provides a basic level of protection that's consistent with other types of technology that's being introduced into the world, right? I think it's about not over regulating or under regulating. And my concern with the policymaking process is that we have this elastic band situation where we often pull too tight and then it snaps back the other direction. So how do you balance that pendulum? And I think that's why dialogues like the ones that we're sort of encouraging folks to have is so important.
You and I were on an X space yesterday, and the conversation came up about how do you engage with policymakers, right? And if you may remember, I made a comment about you got to figure out what they're, what hits their button. Right now, the identity thing I think is tough. We haven't figured that out, but I think the one place where we ought to charge into is AI. Everybody's talking about AI. Everybody's worried about AI, right? Everybody's excited about AI. And the real threat with AI is that you can't trust it. Well, blockchain is a trust protocol, right? If we can connect blockchain to AI and say, hey, listen, a blockchain gives us an opportunity to be able to trust our training data and our training models. SES Networks, which is one of the sponsors of our events, build a decentralized infrastructure where they allow the AI training data and training models to be separated. It's solutions like theirs, right, that will allow us to really see a need for blockchain. Not just that it's cool, but we need it in AI, right? The GBA has built an artificial intelligence supplement to the blockchain maturity model, right, which we're working on right now. It needs some work right now. I think the requirements are a little too stringent. I don't think anybody can actually meet it. But this is an area where we've got to put time and attention into, and it's one of the topics that we'll be covering at our event at the U.S. Capitol.
Yeah, and all of these different aspects of the industry, we could spend a whole show sort of unpacking and getting into. But I did want to at least cover on some level healthcare, because that's come up in conversations between us, and I met the head of your steering committee on this in this area. I think it's a really interesting opportunity and potentially a new economic model for an industry that has its challenges. Benefit costs keep going up, and the actual amount of benefits people are getting is decreasing. There's a focus on addressing acute issues, not preventative health. And this is in the United States, but also globally. I spent a lot of time in Europe this summer and sort of felt like there's a similar trend going on. So I guess the question is, is the GBA looking at healthcare as an area of exploration and advocating, and what are the barriers to sort of a new economic model for healthcare using blockchain?
So last week I was speaking to a group of about 200 physicians and healthcare administrators, and I asked them how many of them could explain blockchain to somebody at a reception or to casual conversation, and two people raised their hands, my wife and the person who invited me to the event. Right, there's a serious lack of knowledge in the healthcare space about blockchain, but blockchain offers literally in every aspect of healthcare. I'll just inventory them here in a second. But back in 2016, HealthCoin was one of the first coins that came out in blockchain, and it was really focused on diabetes care. It has then morphed. It was then taken by consensus for a while, and then the person you're talking about, Heather Flannery, she now runs an ecosystem called AI Mind System. I think it's an evolution of that very first healthcare token and ecosystem. But in every area, so we mentioned clinical trials. So consent management, participation in clinical trials, in case management, there are blockchain solutions that are currently in place. This is eventually going to be, I think, a $25 billion industry in the next 5 years, I think is the numbers that I saw.
Hey listeners, are you ready to amplify your voice in a digital world? Introducing .podcast domains, your gateway to the future of online identity. Whether you're a creator, a company, or just someone with big ideas, .podcast is for you. Own your unique digital identity, connect securely, and explore hundreds of apps with no renewal fees. Don't wait for someone else to claim your name. Secure your .podcast domain today and be part of the next generation of content creation. Visit get.unstoppabledomains.com/podcast to get started. Again, that's get.unstoppabledomains.com/podcast. Your voice, your rules, your identity.
One of the biggest problems that I saw at the conference that I attended was the incredible amount of lack of trust between the healthcare payers, right, and the patients, the patients and the providers. In fact, we just had somebody murdered not too long ago. Remember, the president of United Healthcare was just murdered, right, because people were concerned that because of profit motives, they were denying claims, right? I can't speak to that. I don't have any insider information into that. But blockchain solves all these problems. Blockchain allows us to do this on smart contracts. They allow the rules to be clear, right? Healthcare is 1/6 of the national economy, and the fraud, waste, and abuse in healthcare is staggering, right? So anyway, this is a huge subject. I could spend hours talking about it, but Josh, you hit the nail on the head. This is a super important topic, and we need good people. And so I would say anybody who's interested in working on this issue, send an email to events@gbaglobal.org, and we'll get you connected with people in the healthcare space that are really working on this subject.
Yeah, I appreciate you creating this type of a forum for knowledge sharing and moving these important areas along. There's organizations like the Blockchain Gaming Alliance that we're a part of, focused on getting all the gaming folks together. And what you're doing with government is just as important, if not more important. Government is one of the biggest consumers in terms of services in the world, and there's a huge opportunity for folks to build up this sector. It's not so much about shiny coins going up or down really fast. It's about actually contributing to society and using this technology for its full. We'll be talking about all these topics in more depth at our event, The Future of Money, Governance, and the Law, which will be in Capitol Hill, October 30th. There's going to be conversations about AI, about healthcare, about stable coins, about national security. And we've just kind of touched on some of these areas, and really encourage folks to see the lineup of speakers, which includes folks from Congress, leaders in this sector. We have Grayscale coming, as well as Coinbase, Animoca brands. So many important folks in this conversation. So Gerard, I'll let you sort of tell folks how they can participate in the event.
Sure. Well, if you have any questions about the event, send an email to events@gbaglobal.org, and we'll get your questions answered. We'll get you links to all the stuff about about everything. If you go to gbaglobal.org, you should see there's a slider with the event right there. Click on that; it'll take you right to it. If you don't see it, you can go underneath events. There's a link that says FOMGL, FOMGL, Future of Money, Governance, and Law, or you go to gbaglobal.org/FOMGL, FOMGL. That's how you can find out about the event. And like I said, if you have any questions, shoot us an email. We'll answer your questions, and we look forward to seeing it.
Yep. And Gerard, are you on X as well? Do you have an X handle we can share with the folks?
I do. I'm not on there frequently, so if GBA Global is probably the best one. My personal one is probably G-A or GR-A. I don't have it memorized.
Okay, so GBA Global. And again, just a friendly reminder, there's this secret hack here with the event where obviously there's a limited amount of access to the actual daytime event. While it's free, there is quite a queue at this point. You can fast track and bypass that queue if you get a ticket to the Gala, which is currently on sale for $275 as we're recording this podcast. The price will go up. This is the advanced ticket price, and get yourself 20% off with the code EDGEVIP, and enjoy this really amazing experience. Come to the Gala and then come to the main event the next day. Maybe stay for the weekend. Catch some good museums, a show, some good restaurants. Zatenia, shout out to Zatenia, one of my favorite spots. One of the Jose Andres additions to DC, and a great spot. But definitely lots of great places to go, and hope to see you there with Gerard and I. And that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on the show, Gerard.
Thanks for having me.
We've reached the outer limit at the edge of show for today. Thanks for exploring with us. We have room for more adventurers on our starship, so invite your friends and cool strangers to join our journey. If you're among the hundreds of thousands following us on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or watching us on Myco or YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, rate us, and make an awesome comment too. And don't forget to pass this episode along to a friend or two who would benefit from it. Doubling back to again, recommend checking out myco.io, where you can watch The Edge of Show and earn for your time and attention. That's myco.io. Don't forget to visit theedgeofshow.com. The is part of the domain name, where you can learn more about collaborating with us and also subscribe to the Edge of Weekly newsletter for the latest Web3 news, events, and show drops. In addition, connect with us on all major social platforms by searching for The Edge of Show. Join the exciting conversations happening online. Lastly, be sure to tune in next time for more great Web3 and AI content. Until then, keep pushing the boundaries. Thanks again for hanging out with us today. The views and opinions expressed on The Edge of Show reflect solely those views and opinions of the show host and its guests. Please make sure to do your own research. Our show is not financial advice. You understand that you are using any and all information on or through this podcast at your own risk. Whenever making financial decisions, we recommend doing your own research and talking to your accountant for financial advice. From time to time, we may feature sponsored content on the show for which we receive value, and we may share links for which we receive a commission if you make a purchase through one of these links. Refer to our website, www.edgeofnft.com, for our full disclaimer, terms and conditions, and privacy policy.